In the midst of October, on our way out, plenty of movies have come out this month. But there's one specific movie that came out and had a really just silent release that nobody initially talked about. And that movie is Piece by Piece. Now, this is a really interesting movie that I've had on my radar, since it was announced. We all got excited that Universal was finally making another Lego movie, and then we find out that it's actually a biopic for Pharrell Williams. Now, this is something really interesting that we've never really seen before. Yes, we have our fair share of biopics, we still have them coming out to this day. We had a Bob Marley movie come out all the way back in February, and on the horizon we have a Michael Jackson one, which I know will make buckets, but one that is taken in a completely different direction. One not only being animated, but being animated in the Lego style. Now, this caught everyone's attention. The first trailer was jarring, but actually, I was able to get with it, and I wasn't the only one. But there was just one big problem. I don't think anyone realized this released 2 weeks ago. The movie had a release date of October 11th, 2024, and the box office is, well... Now, in terms of the movie's budget, it's only $16 million, so it's not a total failure. Financially, I think it'll just be alright. Nothing profitable, but it'll just be alright. To be fair, the movie had a lot of competition. October 11th was a pretty big week. There was a bunch of films dropping, so I can cut the film some slack. And on top of that, the film really needed to bring in tickets. It's hard to get people out to go see multiple movies. There's just way too much. It was really crowded this month, actually. But in terms of the movie itself, I actually enjoyed it. It's not a movie that changes the game in animation. It's not going to make headlines of how this, changes everything. But I will say that it's a really creative and unique biopic film that stands among the rest of these biopics that we've been getting that actually surprisingly worked really well with a Pharrell Williams film. And you know what? I walked out satisfied. It's nothing crazy, but I actually enjoyed it. Now, going with this was actually a thought that he's actually been really open to. He's seen a bunch of these artists go into and start making their own documentaries, but he wanted to do something different. And not just being animated, going to Lego is also very interesting to do as well. Just the whole thing with Lego movies in general has been kind of dead. The Warner Brothers rights for the Lego movies have been dead since 2020, and now Universal has the rights to make Lego movies. And they've had that contract sitting there for a while now, and they have not done much with it at all. And this is one of the movies that counts with their deal. I'm sure Universal has plans for other Lego movies in the future, but this one was just one of the ones where I was like, oh, okay, we have the rights, let's go ahead with this one. And I'll say the animation is actually really great for a theatrical Lego movie. I wouldn't say it's on par with the Warner Brothers Lego movies, but you get the same vibe. The movie is really played as a documentary. The movie isn't like your typical biopic where it just goes on its own. Pharrell Williams is at the center of this movie, and he does a lot of narration for different parts of his life. So it does kind of follow that formula, which works. And I'll say that going in depth with how originally he made a lot of beats for these artists, and we do get an insight to the music industry on how he's worked on some of the biggest hits from the 2000s and 2010s, and it was really nice to see how that all played out. One thing I found really creative is how he made the beats with the Lego pieces. That was actually a really cool aspect of the film that I did enjoy. And a lot of the sequences that really just can only be done in animation form, And I think that's partially the reason why Pharrell Williams really thought that this would be the best idea, and it works really well with the grand scope of how he thought. And another thing, the soundtrack slaps. I mean, for a Pharrell Williams film, you already knew that, but there are some original songs put in there that it just goes hard. Pharrell Williams has had a pretty good year, regards for songs for animated movies. We just had Despicable Me 4, which wasn't great, but I will say Double Life did really slap. And, with this movie, with a bunch of new songs, and we see how these songs were made, and actually, it does give a greater appreciation for a lot of these songs that Pharrell Williams has been behind. Because a lot of people really only give fame to either the lead singer or the producer of the song, but we never really go in depth for who's making the beats, who's doing the writing of the song. We really don't go in depth with that, and I will give credit that they do go into that. And I was also really surprised by how much this movie stayed at the PG rating, and there was quite a few things that they said in there that, was kind of pushing it. I really thought it was going to go for that PG-13 rating, but they were still able to keep it PG-13. Like you had your typical damn or hell, like you've seen that in most animated movies now, but there was a lot of shits. There was quite a few, and there was just things in place. Like, I can show this scene. When he's talking with Snoop Dogg, they used a little PG spray. That was actually a little funny joke, but you can tell that it's really being used because it's still being a PG movie. It's fine. You can still show kids this movie. It's really not a problem. They've heard this all before. But it's something that actually is really starting to push in the direction of how far PG movies can go, and I like to see that sometimes. One thing I kind of like, it's kind of outside of the movie, but Pharrell Williams told none of the guest stars in this movie that this was secretly being done as a Lego movie. So you saw, like, a lot of genuine things he thrown in here. Like, I feel like if they knew it was a Lego movie, some things would have been changed. But with this, I think that it just works in the best favor. I will say, in terms of biopic standpoints, I don't think they went into a lot of Pharrell Williams' lows. They did go into him kind of losing himself, of either deciding to stay with beats or taking his own solo song and kind of getting lost in that. I'll say they did a good job on that, but there are other aspects that Pharrell Williams has had over the years that they never really went into. But it's not a giant problem. That, honestly, if you were a massive fan of Pharrell Williams, you'd notice it. But for what they did, it still works out fine. It's not necessarily a problem. And the movie's runtime, it's decently paced, 1 hour and 30 minutes. That's not that bad. But it's a very well done creative story. And I mean, it's Lego we're talking about, but I will say they took full advantage of what they had. And that's one thing I was really eagerly waiting to see. How far are they going to take this being in the Lego form? And they just did a really good job. It didn't feel diddled down for children. It actually felt like something everyone can watch. And I'm really great that Pharrell Williams has appreciated the medium of animation that he can tell this story through. And it works. It really does. It's not a, game-changing animated movie, but in terms of biopics, this one stands out and will probably be talked about for a while. Now, its box office performance isn't that great. It's already in the 100Ks, so the movie is probably on its way out, with Venom dropping this week and a bunch of blockbusters coming out in November. But I'm sure once this movie drops on digital, it will pick up traction, because it is a genuinely good movie. It just wasn't placed in the best spot, and it had a lot of competition. I wouldn't give it fault to the movie being bad or anything. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It'll be fine on digital. But if you are interested in Pharrell Williams in any way, or you have the slightest curiosity with this film, if you're not doing anything, I would give it a watch. But if you can wait, I can say you can kind of wait for this on digital, but either way, I will say that you will enjoy this movie. But those are my thoughts on Piece by Piece. What did you think of it? And if you've seen it, let me know down in the comments. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.